Hello, YouTube and MSA students. Today and the next following lessons, you're going to be accessing this video to learn how to make Sweetgrass inspired wall art inspired by the Gullah Geechee culture. I'm excited to see what you come up with. So what you'll need today is coiling core, which is that thick white rope. You'll need thread, which is raffia, what we will be using. You're going to need a needle threader and a needle. That's the eye of the needle, the hole at the end. Do not use the needles with the small eye. The paper threaders will not fit through the eye of the small needles. The first step is getting used to threading the needle. You're going to have to do this a lot during this project, but you're going to get really good at it. So you're going to put the thread in the paper like it's taco meat, and you're just going to use that strong, thick paper to push it through the eye of the needle. So you can hold the needle and then pull the paper along with the string through. You can pinch it so that the thread stays in place. Pause the video and practice that a few times. If your basket has already been started for you, you can pause the video and fast forward to 4 minutes and 30 seconds ahead. If you are starting a basket or wall hanging art from scratch, you can go ahead and watch the next section. It's going to show you how to start a basket. So to start your basket, you're going to lay your yarn up against the coiling core, and you're going to hold it with your hand. You're going to put it about a thumb's width up from the edge. Again, I'll show you that, a thumb's width up. You're going to hold it with that thumb. You're going to hold it nice and tight. With the other hand, you're going to start wrapping it around that loose part of the thread. And you're gonna go all the way till the end, making sure you're pulling it nice and tight around that loose piece of thread. So now we're gonna do our first bend. You'll see that there's an angled side. You want that angled side to be folded in towards what you've already just wrapped. So it looks like a nice smooth transition. So you want that skinny side facing that, and you're just gonna wrap as tightly as you can around that end piece. You're wrapping against 2 rows of coiling core. One is a little bit angled, and you're just gonna keep wrapping, and you can wrap up to where you started and go up a little bit further as well. Now we're gonna start bending in. This part is really hard. Don't get frustrated if you mess up, it is okay. So you want that yarn going on the inside of the lowercase e. So you want it going through the inside. So you're gonna pinch it tight. Sometimes a little bit of the coiling core might be showing. That's okay, you can always adjust that later. So you want the yarn on the inside. Now we're going to do the first stitch. So the needle should be on the end of your thread. You can see here from this red arrow that my thread should be on the inside between the 2 rows of coiling core. So I'm going to stick my needle through the last coil that was made, which in this case is the center of my basket. Now here you're going to see a little gap in between the stitch you just made and the other wrapped coiling core. You're going to place your needle in between, behind the stitch you just made, to make a really, really tight stitch. It's not necessary, but it's the way that it's the best practice, and it's going to make your basket really nice and strong. Now I'm going to go ahead and wrap my yarn around that coiling core 6 to 8 times. In the beginning, it's better to do it around 6 times just because it's not as strong at this point. Okay, so now we're getting to a little bit of a tricky part because in between where we should be putting our needle is not the center of the basket anymore. You can see it got kind of thick there, so I'm just going to the next available spot where I feel like I can make a stitch. Then I'm going to go ahead and wrap it around 6 times. Again, I'm going to pinch it, and now I'm not putting my needle in through the center of the basket anymore. Hi, so if you're here, I have already started a basket for you. For a lot of you, I made a few stitches and I finished with 6 to 8 wraps on the end. If you need to readjust any of those wraps, you can go ahead and readjust them. So the first step is to pinch your coiling core around. Then you're going to take your needle. Always remember, pull it by the end of the needle so the thread doesn't come out. Next step, I'm going to put my stitch in around the last row, not the row I'm working on, the row before that. I'm going to put it up through the back of the basket. So I'm coming up through the bottom, going through that last row there. I'm going to pull it through nice and tight. And you see this little gap right here? That's where I'm going to put my needle next. So I put it in through the last row, and now I'm going to slip it through this little slot here behind the stitch I just made. That's going to make our basket really nice and strong. So I'm slipping in through there and pulling twice. So we're going to do kind of 2 stitches each time. Now I'm going to wrap 6 to 8 times, covering up that coiling core. I'm going to repeat that process again. So I'm going to show you that one more time. I'm wrapping it around 6 to 8 times. Now before we begin, it's really important that you remember that this yarn or your raffia that you're using is going on the inside of that. It's not going around the outside, it's going to the inside and down. So now that's the inside and down. I'm going to come through from the row before the one I'm on. I'm gonna pull the needle through. Remember, I'm pulling through the bottom of the needle or by the thread. If I pull through from the top of the needle, the yarn's gonna come off the needle. Now I'm gonna pull that nice and tight, and I'm gonna slip my needle in behind the stitch I just made. And I'm gonna zoom in here. You can see the stitch with that light tan. I'm gonna go in between or behind the stitch I just made to make it really nice and strong. All right, so I have my old thread left over. I'm gonna lay it flat against the coiling core. I'm gonna take my new thread. I already have the needle threaded on the other end, and I'm not gonna wrap around the outside and around the outside. I'm gonna wrap, and I'm gonna lay both of them nice and flat. I'm gonna wrap, and see I'm wrapping around the outside. I don't wanna do that. I wanna wrap in. And what I'm doing is I'm just covering up those loose strands there, and then I'm starting a new stitch. So to add coiling core, this is kind of a hard process. You might need my help, but all of these coiling cores should be cut at an angle. So the new one that you cut should also be cut at an angle. And the reason for this is because when you're attaching them in an angle, they're going to be much stronger than if they were just 2 flat edges. Then you're going to take a piece of masking tape about the size of your thumb. You're going to lay those flat and you're gonna masking tape those together really, 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 really tightly. It shouldn't look like there's any bulk because we don't want it to be noticeable once we start wrapping it. Now, to finish your artwork, you already have an angled edge, but you're going to want to angle this edge even more to make it a gradual ending. You don't want it to be a blunt ending, so it's going to be nice and tapered to the edge. As you can see here, I don't have a lot of string left. This is not ideal, so you might want to switch your color or keep going before you end if possible. You can see I'm going to run into some issues here. So we're going to make a stitch that we don't normally make, that we've been avoiding the whole time. So we're actually going up through the last row, and we're actually wrapping around the outside, which is what I've told you not to do. But this is the only time in the basket making process where you're going to wrap around, and you're just going to wrap it around and make stitches all the way until the end. So you're not doing any wrapping, you're only making stitches with your needle. And I'm doing this really, really tight. You can see it's getting so short that my needle keeps falling off, which is super annoying. So please make sure if you're ending yours, you have plenty of thread. And what I actually had to do was end up tying more to mine. So I've wrapped all of mine around. It's all nice and tight. So what you're going to do with that needle, this is really hard. It should be really hard to push it through. If it's not hard, you didn't do it tight enough. And you're going to push your needle with your thread back up through all those stitches you just made. And what we're just trying to do is hide the yarn so that it can't come unraveled. So I'm pulling that really nice and tight. You can do it one time. The more times you do it, the more strong your basket is going to be, and the less likely it will unravel. So I'm really pushing it through there to hide that string, and once I feel like it's strong enough, I can take a scissors and just snip off the extra fabric. Ta-da! There you have it. I can't wait to see what you guys create. Happy basket weaving!